wealth is not an end of itself. It's more of a result of the action that you're taking. Like if you have this ability to make $1 million, then wealth is an inevitable consequence. And generally, I'd say in the journey to financial freedom, it's not too complicated, right? I think there are 4 prerequisites or 4 key things that people need to have. The first one is
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from, and welcome to Authentic by Magoma, another episode of Boldly and Intentionally. And on today's video, we're going to be talking about intentionality with your finances. And I have such an amazing individual here who I just recently met, who has retired at a very young age. Well, older than me, but I mean, not very many people retire at your age, yeah.
True.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But first of all, I'll let him introduce himself before we get into it. Hi. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Christine. I'm excited to be here on Authentic by Magoma. I've had the privilege over the last few days to see some of the well-informed guests you've had on this channel.
No pressure.
And and I'm looking forward to be able to add a little bit of wisdom to the wealth of knowledge you've been accumulating on this forum. So I'm Samson. I managed to retire from formal employment at the age of 34 years old. Now I get to spend my time how I see fit by working on all the projects I used to tell myself I was too busy to do. But before I retired, I was working as an analyst for a decade, a financial analyst. In my career, later on in my career, I was a finance director at a US headquartered nonprofit. Then after that, I was CFO at a Kenyan fintech. And I'd say based on my experiences over the last few years, I am firmly of the view that anybody who earns a recurring stream of income can secure their own financial freedom by following a few simple steps, which we'll get to later on during this session. So I'm hoping that my story can inspire and also offer a bit of guidance to the viewers who are also embarking on their own journey to financial freedom.
Yeah. So now this video series is called Boldly and Intentionally. It takes courage, I think, and you'll let us know to say that you want to retire at an early age. 34 is relatively young. That is when most people are actually, based on what I've come across, most people are actually thinking about, I need to get myself together, I need to get my finances together.
That's true.
At what age did you sit down and think that I want to be financially free, I want to retire early, and employment is not the way for me?
That's an interesting question, because I've always wondered how I would be spending my time if I didn't have to work for a living. Like, what would I be doing for the most part? And even when I was in campus approaching graduation, I was of the opinion that I should venture straight into entrepreneurship and forego the formal employment route. But eventually I decided to be practical, and I saw that it was important for me to secure a job, at least work for a few years to gain the crucial skills and experience that would serve me well later on when I was pursuing my own personal projects. And a few weeks after graduating, I secured my first job. But immediately I got that first job, I was already thinking, how can I retire early? Because I've always valued the ability to be the master of your own destiny, basically to have your future in your own hands and to shape the direction that your life will head towards. And so at that point, I was thinking to myself, so how am I going to achieve this? How am I going to be able to secure financial freedom so that I could retire early and embark on my own personal projects? And basically, conventional wisdom normally says you need to invest in order to build for yourself a financial nest egg that will allow you to retire in some comfort, so that when you're retired, you don't have to struggle to make ends meet. And essentially, I decided to follow this advice. So a few years after I started working, I used to commute in the morning to work, and I would often hear on the radio an advertisement about investing in greenhouses. So the idea behind that was that the promoter of this project would construct greenhouses on behalf of investors, maintain the greenhouse, including farming them on your behalf, taking the produce to market, and then you as an investor, every 6 months they'd pay you about 300,000 shillings. So I was in my mid-20s at the time. I thought about this opportunity, and I saw that the returns were working out to between 40 to 60%. So of course I was excited because I thought this is something that could accelerate my path towards financial freedom. And at that point, I decided to invest. So I pulled the trigger. I invested a significant bit of capital into it, but unfortunately, that project did not pan out. It was a failure. It never got off the ground. So it was a painful experience for me, because you can imagine you're in your 20s, you just made your first significant investment and then it fails. It's a bitter pill to swallow. So at that time, I learned a crucial lesson from that experience, that if you are not intentional, if you approach investment with a poor plan, you can actually suffer significant financial loss, and it could be a setback from which you may not be able to recover. I was fortunate enough that I was able to recover from this failure, but many times there are people who don't manage to find their way past it. And I saw that it's very important to be intentional and to have a good plan when you are going to pursue your journey to investments. Yeah.
What's your earliest memory of interacting with a wealthy person or situation or encounter? Let me give you mine, which I have been narrated to by my mom. She's never narrated to me because I can't really remember.
Yeah.
As a child, whatever you design, whatever is your gift, it already comes out before you have a true understanding of what it is. Yeah. So my grandfather, growing up in Githurai, and we've already had a video about that in my background, did not have the biggest car. We had a car, but it was tiny old car.
Okay.
And my mom was telling me the other day that, you know, there's a time she took me to one of her friends' houses, and the husband to her friend had a big car, really nice car. I think it was a Mercedes. No, it wasn't a big car there. It was a Mercedes, but very nice.
Yeah.
Smelled nice
Like
inside. Yeah, very. It was a luxury car.
Yeah.
And she's telling me that what I said to him was, you know, my grandfather has a car, but it's not nice like this one. I admire that.
True.
I have always wanted nice, sparkling things in this life.
Yeah.
But I had that understanding that it's worked for and it's possible is so important. So what was your earliest memory of interacting with something beautiful? Or did you even grow up in wealth for you to decide that I want to be wealthy, I want to be financially free?
No, I grew up in a humble, lower middle class family, and I'd say my first experience with wealth was when I was visiting relatives, right?
What is lower middle class?
You know, nowadays, like, middle class
category.
is such a broad, definition. Because if you look at what we define as middle class now, it covers so many different sort of people. Yeah. So now, people who would perceive as rich when they're growing up are now considered part of middle class.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think saying lower middle class is a bit of a distinction, because middle class nowadays is it's too broad. So it was visiting relatives. Like, I grew up in Mombasa, and some of my relatives, when I was 10 or younger, we'd visit them and we'd see my brothers and I, we'd see them living in, big houses, and I thought, wow, this is nice.
Bigger than what you were used to.
Big. And this is just big, yeah, objectively. It's like multiple bedrooms, several floors, but we grew up in a modest apartment. For me, though, I'd say my relationship I view wealth as a byproduct of the things that you do in your life. Say if you have a good job, if you make good financial decisions, then wealth tends to follow. So it's not an end in itself, but more of a result of doing something else.
Yeah.
It's a byproduct. Say if you're a successful artist and then you're able to impact a lot of people, the wealth will tend to follow.
Yeah.
Or if you are an athlete and then you're very successful, you get paid a lot. So it's wealth, I view it as a byproduct.
It's what follows after the actions that
exactly.
You do. Yeah.
So it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's more of a indicator of something else. You're doing something right in your life. That's why you've been able to accumulate the wealth. Assuming the wealth is legitimate,
yeah,
of course.
I was headed there. I was going to tell you, well, African politicians.
Yeah. True.
Financial routine. What does that look like, and what does that mean?
Yeah. So I think I can demonstrate this better going back to a story about my journey to where I am today. So, like I'd spoken up earlier about how I failed in my first significant investment, very painful moment. But the good thing about that is, aside from allowing me to realize the impact and the significance of choosing the right strategy, it also brought me back to the drawing board, and I asked myself, okay, this project didn't work. What can I do? What strategy can I implement that will get me to where I need to be? And I spent a lot of time, this many years ago, I spent a lot of time doing research, and I came across different concepts, but I realized that field of investments is overly complicated. Like, it's very difficult to find a coherent strategy that's simple enough, something you can take to heart and implement consistently. And I think that's probably part of the reason why many people you come across may not have their finances where they want them to be. Like, they may be lagging behind based on the financial goals they've set for themselves. It's because it's difficult to find a simple strategy
Yeah.
that you can absorb and implement. And I'm someone who likes to simplify things. But aside from that, my thinking process is something which I later on realized is called first principles thinking. This is a thinking philosophy where you approach a problem from the very basic components, and then you sort of build up your understanding from there. You don't necessarily go with preconceptions or commonly held beliefs, but you find your own truths by going to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
I actually read an article years ago explaining how Elon Musk built many of his ventures, how he runs his businesses, and he implements that a lot. Like when he tries to figure out how can he create a battery that is cost efficient, like he asks himself what makes up a battery, and then he starts from there.
Yeah.
So that is a style that has resonated with me throughout my life, even when I was in school. And coming back to my investment journey, I thought to myself, I really need to start from the very basics and come up with something simple that is personalized to my case and which I can implement. Now, coming to the financial habits, this is basically the genesis of the habits that I ended up developing. And I mentioned that I was studying actuarial science in university. So during that time, we studied the mathematics of finance in a lot of detail. We learned about things called annuities, perpetuities, and these are basically a series of regular cash flows that last for a particular period of time. And a perpetuity in this case is forever, or at least, okay, in theory it's forever, but of course we may not be here forever as people. And I realized that for me, in order to get to financial freedom, I needed to create for myself a perpetuity, or at least an annuity that will last for my entire life, a regular series of cash flows that can meet my expenses. And another thing we learned at that point is the concept of how can you create a perpetuity, right? Like assume you have an investment vehicle that can generate 10% annual returns for you. If you want to make 100,000 shillings every year, then you need 1 million shillings to do it. Like just saying it like that may make it sound complex, but it's actually a very simple concept, and it's an idea we were taught even in primary school when we were learning about simple interest. That interest is equal to principal times rate times time over 100. So if you have, say, principal of 1 million shillings, and then the rate is 10% a year for 1 year, that works out to 100,000. And this is like my aha moment. I realized, okay, so getting to financial freedom can be that simple. I just need to find a way to create this regular series of cash flows.
Yeah.
And that's where my first habit really started. Like I asked myself at that point, like what is an investment vehicle that can generate me at least 10% returns every year? And I settled on government bonds because they are simple to understand and to invest in. They are very safe. They have a good track record and they pay quite promising returns historically.
Yeah.
And the habit that I formed was every single month I would save and buy a bond. It got to the point where I was saving half of my salary, buying bonds with it. And then even the old bonds, the interest that I was paying, I would also add it to my savings and buy more bonds. So I did that for a number of years, and eventually the cash flows that were generated regularly were able to meet my expenses. And that's how I define financial freedom. Just severing that connection, that dependence, the reliance on a payslip. If you can create your own returns, that can allow you to live life and meet your expenses. For me, that's financial freedom, and it's a function of the habits that you develop.
Did you have a particular figure in mind of where you needed to get to in terms of how much you've accumulated with, you spoke about bonds, for you to say that now we can call it quits in terms of employment and move, venture into different things?
That's a good question. So for me, I've approached it. I have three different goals. I've always had a short-term financial goal, a medium-term one, and a long-term goal. In terms to answer your question specifically, the target I had was I know what my monthly expenses are. So the bare minimum I wanted monthly returns to cover that and probably have a small buffer on top. So that was my target. Not necessarily how much money I'd invested, but the returns I was getting. So I got to the point late last year when I was able to achieve that. But I'd say that in general, when it comes to setting goals around this concept, like I have not had all the answers necessarily. Sort of like if you are driving at night on a dark night and your car headlights can only illuminate a few meters ahead. But with just that ability to eliminate a few meters ahead, you can drive safely all the way from Nairobi to Mombasa and beyond. So that's how I've seen this goal, this journey towards financial security. I've been driving sort of at night, just seeing a few meters ahead. Now, I don't know if I'll get to Mombasa or if I'll only get to Machakos, but at least I've made it to Syokimau and I'm still on the way. So that's
I think
really
you've
how I
made it
look
past
at it.
Syokimau.
Yeah. But I still have other goals that I'm hoping to reach.
Definitely. Where you headed to is Mombasa the end point?
Yeah, because I think probably when I get to Mombasa, I'll have a different challenge of knowing when to stop. I think that's also something people struggle with. Yeah, because like you see human beings, we have, there's no limit to our ambition. But I think at some point when you've achieved all your goals, you need to take a step back and maybe set new goals or look at a different area. So I think it's very important to also, I've not reached that place yet where I have this problem of knowing when to stop. But I think it's important just to set a target. Once you achieve it, you probably want to relax a little bit and find something else to do.
That's interesting. What habits are your favorite, quote-unquote, habits that support the individual you become today?
I think reading is important because you can get there's a lot of knowledge out there. So if you have that habit of reading, that thirst for knowledge, you can really pick up a lot of things that will take you very far. So it's just the willingness to learn and that curiosity. Because if you have curiosity, then it becomes second nature to go and seek knowledge. And I think that's very important because we're not born knowing the things that we need to know. You have to learn it from somewhere. And reading is an easy way of doing it, like standing on the shoulder of giants.
Yeah.
So that's something which I've always been intentional about. Even when I was young, I used to love reading novels. Growing up, I sort of evolved to reading non-fiction books. Now I try to learn from people in areas that I am interested in. Like say if I want to learn how to invest more, there are some great books out there on investments like The Intelligent Investor, the Security Analysis, and there's someone called Peter Lynch in the US who was an investment guru. He also wrote a book. So there are all these resources that you can leverage and learn from in order to achieve your own goals in terms of what you want to become.
Yeah. So what are your top 5 books? I've already had 2. There is The Intelligent Investor, Security Analysis. So we'll have to 3. So
that's in the field of investment. But in life generally, I think top 5. Wow, that's hard.
I know.
Okay.
As a person who likes to, I do more of audiobooks so that I'm able to cover more in a shorter period of time. But as a person who likes to just listen to more people speak about or talk about something, it's very difficult to pick.
It is. Wow. Okay, there's a book I read recently. I think it's a good practical book that allows you to build good habits and routines, Atomic Habits. I just finished reading it about a month ago.
You told me about it.
Yeah, I'd actually put it at number 1.
Uh-huh.
That's the book that I can see has a lot of impact because it's very practical.
Yeah.
I've also read a book by Robin Sharma called The Greatness Guide. I read this a few years ago. There's some very great analogies and so on and lessons in that book. And I think it's something for someone who wants to achieve an ambitious goal. It's a good book to read. I'd say yes, security analysis, like specifically in the field of investment. That's also a book that has been instrumental for me.
Very good book.
Yeah, I've read The Secret.
Life-changing.
Yeah, it has some interesting ideas there. I think I've had a lot of sort of negative takes on the topics covered there, like many doubters out there.
Okay.
But I still like people who don't necessarily believe.
Faithless people.
Yeah, but it has some great lessons still. How, whatever you believe in, you can still draw a lot from that book.
Yeah.
So it's also been a key book for me, an instrumental book. And also, I've read, like in the field of self-help, there is How to Influence and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting book. Yeah. And right now I'm reading his public speaking book as well. It's about effective speaking. So that's the other book I'm reading. So far, I've found it very interesting, but it's still an ongoing learning process. But I'd say really what I've found is it's best not to, because sometimes like you can get caught in a trap of reading too many books and then you don't necessarily apply. Exactly. So for me, like I normally try to keep my list very focused. Like I wouldn't go beyond 3 even. Yeah, when I'm learning something, like say something very general like investments, so that I can read them. Even say a year later, I read the same book just to remind myself of the concepts.
So, based on from everything that you've told us, speaking about financial well-being, investing, as well as early retirement, if I am a 24-year-old like me, someone out there is watching and they're my age and they've just probably started employment, gotten a new job, and they want to retire at a particular age, what practical steps can they take for them to retire by that age? What kind of mindset do they require, and what kind of habits do they need to form?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's important for people to come up with a strategy that works for them, like the ability to personalize an investment strategy and then apply it in your unique case. And generally, I'd say in the journey to financial freedom, it's not too complicated, right? I think there are 4 prerequisites or 4 key things that people need to have. The first one is the desire to achieve financial freedom. I think that's important. You need some basic math skills, the ability to earn a recurring revenue or a recurring income, and then last, the will to take the action needed to achieve your financial goals.
Just for me, for my sake, differentiate desire and will.
True. So I'd say for desire, it's the feeling that you really want to do this, the determination and the inspiration. Like when you have a dream that this is what I want to achieve, and you're willing to take the necessary action to get there. I can share a few tips, a simple game plan that we can all implement to get to our financial goals. Yeah.
I'm waiting for those tips.
One? Yeah. And I'd say, like I explained earlier about the research I was doing in this field of investment, how complicated it is, and my thinking process, which is starting from the basics and then building up from there. And I actually believe that the key things you need to know in order to be able to implement this game plan, they can actually fit on the back of a business card. Like there are 3 main things. The first one is spend less than you earn every month. Easier said than done, right?
How do you spend more than you earn?
So you need to spend less than you earn every single month.
My question was, how do you spend more than
you
earn if you don't have?
Loans. That's what we do.
I needed you to say that.
Yeah.
I needed you to say that.
Exactly. And I think for that one, there are a few key things people can do. Like the first one, you need a savings account, first of all, especially a savings account that restricts you dipping into it.
Yeah.
So say a savings account that only allows you to withdraw funds once a month.
Yeah.
That gives you a very good avenue to save. And then you also need to have a budget. A budget is very important, even if it's a simple budget that tells you need to spend X every month, and then you stick to that budget. Then you need to look at your impulsive purchases and all these things you spend on that you don't necessarily need to spend. And if you're able to cut that, it allows you to save more. And then,
what causes impulsive purchases?
Now that you probably need a different guess for that, a psychologist or something. Let's say if you have a passion for something, assuming, because I have a friend who is a big NBA fan. So he likes buying many shoes. I wouldn't necessarily say it's impulsive, but maybe from the outside looking in, it might seem that, like say if you have very many pairs of shoes and you only wear a few of them, then probably that's impulsive. But really it's a judgment call. It's you who can tell what is impulsive once you review your spending. And the other thing is when you get unexpected cash, sometimes you can get a salary increment or you can get a bonus or just some cash which you did not expect. Don't spend all of it. At least save a good chunk of it so that your future self can also benefit. Yeah. So that's the first one. Spending less than you earn. Then the second one is save the excess earnings. So this is where I mentioned earlier, having that savings account that restricts how often you dip into it will be useful. The other thing that will be useful here is to be sure to pay your future self and don't spend your savings as much as possible. And coming back to atomic habits and the opinion of experts in behavior, they talk about this concept called habit stacking, where if you want to adopt a new habit, you try to tie it to an existing one so that it's easier to implement. And there are many people out there who pay tithe, for instance. Every single month you pay the 10% tithe. And since a saving is essentially a payment to your future self, it will be a good idea to try and tithe. When you pay tithe, you also pay your future self by saving some money. So that is a very effective way to try and save more. And then it's also very important to remove the temptation to spend your savings or your investments. And one easy way to do that is to start an emergency fund, so that if an emergency comes about, you have an unexpected expense that comes up, you don't have to dip into your savings or into your investments, but you utilize the emergency fund that you've created. So I'd say those are the key tips under savings. And then the last one is to invest your savings. Now that you've spent less than you earn, you're able to save excess earnings, then you need to invest. And under investment, the first key thing is to avoid anti-investment. Like anti-investment for me is when you spend a lot, rather when you take up a loan that is very expensive, like a lot of these digital loans, credit card loans, and so on. Loans which are so expensive, you cannot achieve the same return if you try to invest. Yeah, so as much as possible, if you can, have that emergency fund in place and then use it for unexpected expenses, so you avoid borrowing high interest loans. That would be a good first step. Once you've stopped the anti-investment, then you need to identify investment avenues that make sense for you. Like for me personally, it was government bonds, but if someone who is a Muslim is watching and want to be Sharia compliant, of course, they can't invest in bonds because of the interest element. So in that case, they want to start a business or invest in a tuk-tuk that will generate for them some regular returns. And once you do that, coming back to your question, you need to also appreciate the relationship between risk and return. And I think this is a very important concept when it comes to investing, because that will allow you to avoid potentially dubious investments. Because risk and return are two sides of the same coin. On one side you have the return, the other side you have risk. And if, say, you want high return, then you should be willing to take on high risk, because they go hand in hand. And if you want low risk, then you should be comfortable with low returns. And I think if you do that, if you follow those three things, spending less than you earn, saving your excess earnings, and also investing your savings, that will allow you to eventually get to the point where you generate enough returns to cover your expenses. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We shall be applying those.
Yeah, I hope you do, because that's a very simple game plan that's easy to apply.
Yeah. And can lead you towards retirement early. Well,
exactly.
If that is
that's
what
did it
you
for
want.
Me. Yeah.
Now, before I wind up, I give my guests a chance to ask me a question, if they have any. Do you have any?
What's your biggest aspiration?
Oh wow! To climb
for the medium
Everest.
term. Yeah, let's say for the medium term, not long term necessarily.
Medium term is what? How many years?
Say next 5 years or so. 5-6 years.
5-6 years.
Yeah.
So I divide my life in all these. By these I mean spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. What are the Lees there? Yeah, this Lees. We are mind, body. Yes, psychology. We are mind, body, heart, soul, and spirit. So in terms of my mind, and financially, for financially, yeah. So spiritually, building a better relationship with my maker, whoever he is. We have different narratives of who our maker is. Could be God, could be Allah, as long as the person who wakes me up knows I exist and I'm serving in my purpose. Because we are all gifted differently. I think everyone has something to offer in this world. Then now, so that's spiritually. Financially, I want 7-year funding for my organization called Tech for Peace Africa. And I want it to be great funding. Yeah,
to allow you to run stress-free for 7 years.
Because currently I am a founder and I am not depending on a person to give me an end-month salary. But I always knew that is not what I wanted. I went to find employment because I needed to learn how does an organization function. What are the structures? What kind of leadership do you require? And I think that I landed in the perfect place because I saw everything. There was nothing being hidden. If it was proposal development, we were all in the room learning about that. If it was concept notes, if it was defending your proposal with the donors or whoever is funding you, I got to be in there from when I was an intern to when I was a communications officer. So that was perfect.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Hope you get to that goal, because working in a non-profit, I saw there are very many well-wishers out there, family offices and impact investors who tend to support such initiatives. So I hope you'll manage to find a few that will support this cause that you have.
I have no doubt that I
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
I
All the
am
best.
certain.
Yes.
It's only a matter of time. It's a when question, not an if question.
Yeah.
It's when will I.
Definitely. That's the right mentality.
Yeah. Then mentally,
Mhm.
expand my mind to the greatest place it can get, and that my mental and physical well-being and goals are very linked together, in the sense that if I'm not moving my body, my mind is hardly ever at its best. If that makes sense. I don't know how that will function, but if I didn't hit the gym or walk or run, or okay, don't run. I'm terrible at running. Couldn't try to save my life. I pant like a dog. I pant like a dog. But
hiking is your thing.
Yeah, I hike. I walk very well. Can hike for very many hours.
Yeah.
So my mental and physical well-being and goals are linked. That's what I realized. So whenever I'm working on my mind in terms of what I'm putting into it, the books I read, the podcast I listen to, so I want to be able to shift from just listening to these people to actually having a conversation with them. I want to meet, so my goal is to meet and have a conversation and recording with the likes of Jay Shetty, Larry's House, hopefully Oprah.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, why not? So that's why it's linked. Then now also the physical bit, Everest is, me and Everest are like this.
Yeah. That's like climbing to the cruising altitude of your plane.
Yeah. That is where I want to go hike to. I've done Mount Kilimanjaro, so the next 5 years, 5 to 6 years, which will be by the time I hit 30, Everest. Then what we're left with, so I've already spoken of mind. Spiritually, did I? Yeah.
Spiritually, yeah, you mentioned that.
I think I mentioned all.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Well, we're working on that.
Yeah. Oh, you have
so work
everything
in progress.
figured out, yeah?
No, I just
At
understand
24.
all the leaves, but I wouldn't say that I know exactly what will happen tomorrow, but I have an intention for how I'd want tomorrow to look like. Whether it goes in that exact manner or does not is totally up to the decisions that I make that accumulate to where I want to be. As you say, like wealth, it's an accumulation of actions. Then you get the result equals wealth. It's less to do with that is the money or that is what you have as a person. It's more what decisions or actions did you take
consistently to get there.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, great.
Very beautifully and comprehensively. More than expected.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay. Guys, did you enjoy this conversation? I absolutely loved it. Learning about how you got to financial well-being, retirement at an early age, just 34 years. Let me know in the comment section, would you want to see him again on this platform? Did you pick up anything? What was your favorite part of this conversation? And thank you for sticking around. Again, if you, just like in my other videos, if you had a little bit of background noise, my apologies. Wilson is doing that thing. Nilisikia ndege ikipita at some point. But I'm happy that kuku haikubika leo nikirecord.
It was very quiet.
It was very quiet. Yeah. Hey, the days when it's the ghetto.
Yeah, it gets very chaotic, yeah.
No, the chickens just do that thing. They decide.
Yeah.
She pressed the record. That is when to start quacking.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Christine, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I hope that I've at least shared some knowledge that people can apply. And I wish the viewers a good journey towards achieving their financial goals and all the success that is in store for them. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm certain that you did. I mean, people will let us know what they found. I found great value. So you have impacted my life if you've not yet impacted my life. You've done a good job today.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, please do like, subscribe, and share so that we have more people watching this video and being educated or rather enlightened about financial well-being, early retirement, and where to go to next beyond, and investing wisely. I think that was a key takeaway for me rather. Investing wisely, the greenhouse was a terrible idea for him.
Yeah, true.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.